is a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Kinnar Shah from Sydney, Australia.
Correct.
And
Thank you for that, Howard.
my brother, my little brother Paul, he was born when I was 17, so I'm 53, so he's what, 36. He moved to Sydney 2 years ago. And, we grew up in Kansas, and my mom and sisters are like, when are you moving back to Kansas? He's like, Mom, you can't move to Sydney, Australia, and then go back to Kansas. I've been down there a couple of times, a couple of my boys each time. Oh, my God. Every time I leave Sydney, I come back to Phoenix and think, what the hell am I living here for? So I'm extremely jealous of you. Let me read your bio. Dr. Kinnar Shah is based in Sydney, and his passion and expertise as a dentist is in cosmetic, laser, and implant dentistry. A transformational and a motivational speaker and the principal director of SmileConcepts, personal growth events, Instaclicks, and premium ceramics. He is obsessed in teaching leadership, business, sales, and communication skills to health professionals. He is walking the talk as an example in this field. Practicing 2.5 days per week has allowed him to work on and grow his practice sevenfold over the last 3 years. His marketing strategies allowed one of his practices, SmileConcepts, to drive 140 new clients a month. SmileConcepts is positioned to be the leading practice in Sydney and is the highest customer reviewed practice in Australia. The strategies for such growth and presence are what Kinnar loves to teach with a passion. He believes every professional has the potential to do so and loves adding value for your growth. He starts by exploring the correct mindset, belief and attitude through to relationship building, influence, strategic and execution principles. Masteries of these skills will propel your success both personally and professionally. Communication plays a role in all these factors. The way we communicate to ourselves and the way we communicate with others ultimately dictates the quality of our lives. Being a certified high-performance coach, a certified Gallup Strengths coach, and a NLP business and leadership coach, he specializes in working with the innate strengths and talents of the entire team for the potential of higher success. He has coached and consulted numerous businesses in the last 3 years to implement certain methods and strategies to double or triple the number of daily clients, get more employee engagement, deliver a client experience second to none, and ultimately having a better quality of life. His favorite topic to teach professionals would be in high-performance communication and sales, how to increase conversions and sales dramatically. Being active in the entrepreneur field, he understands the unique challenges of today's business owners and entrepreneurs. His fresh perspective, innovative methods, and system blueprints will facilitate you and your business to higher levels. Having been in the professional business field for 15 years, he is passionate about giving people the tools to be resourceful and effective. His favorite quote is, "Don't let the good get in the way of great." Kinnar is currently authoring his book, "Your Life is Your Biggest Occasion. Rise Up to It." Kinnar, thank you so much for taking your time. So it's 3 p.m. here in Phoenix, Arizona on April 13th. What time and day is it in Sydney?
Yeah, 8:05 in the morning, Howard. It's a lovely day here. I feel like it's about to rain a wee bit, but it's always a lovely day in Sydney.
So it's already the 14th there. You're a day ahead of me.
Correct.
I've known I've been a day behind my entire life, and now you're showing it. So Kinnar, what do you think? What do you think they don't teach you in dental school? The truth is, on these podcasts, only 5% of Americans have listened to a podcast. They're mostly under 30. Every time I get an email from someone listening to this show at howard@dentaltown.com, they're usually a junior and senior in dental school to 5 years out. They only know what they know. They don't know what they don't know. You've been out 15 years. What do you think these young dentists don't know that they need to know?
I guess it's all, my first point would be I guess it's all boils down to what life is all about. And one of the biggest purposes of life would be, I would say, in my opinion, would be the ultimate emotion being happy. So when I ask everyone, what's your ultimate emotion? I want to do this, I want to do that. And what would that lead to? When I finally ask them, the answer always boils down to being happy. And I believe happiness comes from pursuing a life or a career. Part of happiness comes from pursuing a life or career where you're successful in, and you're contributing the most you can in the best possible way. And what we don't get taught in university is how to become a successful dentist. Um, Everyone knows that dentistry is a profession where it's quite intense. It takes a big toll on ourselves, physically, emotionally, mentally, uh, spiritually, I would say as well. And what I would encourage young dentists would be to firstly go into a habit of self discovery, find out what their passion is, what they truly love to do, how they can contribute to that, how what their beliefs are around that, what their values are around it. Be very congruent on how you are performing as a dentist, but congruent with your inner self. And that's the first advice I would give you, because before you start in a journey of just providing clinical service out there, how can you get to know yourselves first? How can you be successful? Because the ultimate aim is to get happiness out of what you're doing. I guess that sums it up.
Kinar, ever since I've been a dentist, every year I see 2 to 3 dentists commit suicide. Every year I've been a dentist for 30 years. So the main thing is self-discovery and to be happy. Don't do things you hate for money
Yeah,
or it's going to
sure.
end in alcoholism, drug abuse, suicide.
Sure, sure. And dentistry is a wonderful profession. I mean, we get to serve so many people. One of the biggest psychological drives of human beings is to serve people. And we get to serve people beautifully, and help them with their health as well. However, again, because it's such a indulging profession, we need to be very careful on being congruent with living our lives as well, and how to make our success, our profession being very enjoyable, being very thoroughly enjoyable on the way we perform it. And I totally agree with you that what you say, that there's a lot of sadness and a high suicide rate, one of the highest suicide rates we have in our profession. And I guess that's where the pain factor of our profession is. That why is that? Why are we so caught up in this rut cycle? And I believe one of the reasons is that people don't form a habit of self-discovery. So that I feel that's a very important thing to do.
So what do you when you talk about how do you have fast and effective rapport with another human in 60 to 90 seconds? What is that all about?
Well, so one of the things I sincerely believe in is that we as dentists have all taken an oath to serve our patients, serve our clients. Uh, However, what has happened in the recent industry is competition has increased dramatically, and we are in a stage where, especially for example, I've got a practice right in the middle of city, right in the middle of Sydney city, and I'm surrounded by not less than 200 dentists in a span of 2-3 kilometers. So back in the day, there used to be a philosophy where a dentist would suggest or would advise a patient to take certain form of treatment, and they would happily accept it, and hence that would allow us to serve our patients. But what's happening now in this industry is that competition has increased. There is obviously more supply than demand, which is always good. Competition is always good. I always discourage my fellow peers to have a scarcity mindset. I'm always telling everyone that there's enough for everyone. However, more importantly than serving, there's one more factor now before it, which is converting your patients. So communicating and converting your patients. So I feel the best way to do it is to learn effective methods on how to build deep rapport, deep and fast rapport with your patients. So that allows you for them to give them your time and trust you, so that we so then that allows them, so we can serve them in the best possible way. So establishing a deep sense of rapport and a fast sense of rapport, possibly 60 to 90 seconds, is because nowadays I heard this great phrase the other week where it said something along the lines of, where information is becoming cheap, attention becomes expensive. So, it's one of those things that we have to build fast rapport with our patients, so finally, so they can agree with our proposals, build trust in them, and then they can carry on and take our treatment protocols.
So how do you actually do? how do you actually get rapport with the patient in 60, 90 seconds? What are tips? You also talk about spin questions for dentists. Is that, or spin questions to get deeper rapport with your patients faster and easier?
Yes, yes. I mean, I usually teach a five-step process on building fast, effective report. I call it the ABCDE of CPR, which is not cardiopulmonary resuscitation, but more about conversion principles and rules. So these are the five techniques I teach. A stands for attitude. Um, One of the biggest things I've noted when I'm coaching fellow dentists is they're walking around or going into a consultation without the right form of attitude. So one of the things I teach is the first thing we need to have is just the best possible attitude when we are presenting to our patients. So how we come across to them, because remember, the attitude controls the mind controls the body. So I'm always teaching certain techniques on how to come up with the best form of attitude towards the patient. Um, One of the things about attitude is remember, attitude is like, it's like trays, it's like serving trays where we serve ourselves upon to patients. So one of the first thing, I mean, it's no brainer nowadays. We all assess and undress and best guess each other. That's human nature. Within a minute, we are all doing that everywhere when we're meeting people. And how do we as a dentist, when we go into a consultation, how do we go and present ourselves in the best form of attitude? So the first strategy is attitude. Now, there's a lot of ways we can come across and prepare our minds to make sure that we are in the best form of attitude in front of our patients. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. We've
So
always
so that's
learned
the
we've always
yeah.
learned that your attitude determines your altitude.
Correct, absolutely. That's one of my favorite phrases as well. And it's very important to note that many people talk about the way they need to ask questions and then the way they need to address situations and problems of a patient, but it doesn't. Remember, the patient is the people do business with people they like. It's period. Nowadays, even patients, when I see, now we actually see about 180 new patients a month, and I end up consulting at least 70 to 80 patients a month. And the thing I've noted there is that pretty much the patients who go through a process of I'm making sure that they come to like me, they will understand anything I say after that. So I can suggest to them any treatment modalities or etc. But the first step is to make sure I come across to them with the best form of attitude. And that's what the letter A stands for. Then we've got the B, C, D, and E. Would you like me to continue with that?
Absolutely.
So
By the way, I
the
just have
second,
one question so far. You said you had a lot of dentists within 2 to 3 kilometers of your office, and all the Americans are wondering what a kilometer is.
kilometers would be
Are we
yes,
still? Is America still the only country that's not on the metric system?
true. A kilometer to mile. I mean, that's a yeah, that's true because you guys say Fahrenheit as well, and we use the word Celsius here. Yeah, it's always confusing in that respect.
So
Yeah,
what's
so
B? So what's you said A was attitude. What's B, C,
yeah.
D, and E?
So the second thing about B being body language. Action speaks louder than words. First impressions are always powerful. I'm always telling dentists that, dress to impress. I mean, back in the day, I had some of the dentists walking in to the room with a white tunic or a lab coat, and nowadays I encourage dentists to go in, just well dressed, maybe a nice shirt and tie and a trouser. Mainly because remember, the intention of the consultation is to build rapport, is to make sure that you're ending up converting that patient, which allows you then to serve them. So the first part of anything is conversion, and that will allow you to serve them. I mean, statistically, coaching just over 300 dentists so far. Um, One of the things I've noticed is the conversion rate of dentists nowadays in Sydney. I mean, this is just me and my statistics and just asking around, is around 30 to 40%.
Okay, explain what a conversion rate is. There might be someone who doesn't understand what you mean.
Conversion simply means that the patient is accepting your treatment. So you've gone around and diagnosed and gone through a process of explaining to them what the issues are and how we are going to help them. And when they say, yes, I accept what you're saying and please book me in for treatment, that means that's a converted case.
And what kind of conversion rate?
Acceptance. I think you guys use case acceptance.
And what kind of case acceptance or conversion rate are you seeing with the 300 clients around Australia that you've worked with?
Well, the 30 to 40% I was mentioning there is medium to high-end dentistry. I'm not talking about the general dentistry, which patient comes in for a routine checkup or hygiene or a couple of fillings here and there. I'm talking about more intensive, few crowns, full mouth makeovers, for implants, multiple implants.
Do you know what it is for the United States?
Yes.
The research I see is just for decay. For every
Yes.
100 cavities diagnosed, only 38 get converted to a filling.
Wow.
That's
Okay,
for
so
a
which
filling.
is similar. Yeah, which is similar, 30 to 40%. So you're saying even in the general dentistry, you're facing that
Absolutely. And
So
that's my pet peeve, because every dentist wants to ask a question on what bonding agent do you use, what composite do you use. And I'm like, dude, you don't even remove the decay
yes,
62% of the time. I don't care if you fill the tooth with butter and jelly and IRM, just get all the infection out. Why are you talking about bonding agents? You should be talking
yes,
about conversion rates. And that's why I'm so honored that you're on our show to talk to these guys, that it's not the bonding agent, it's the conversion
yeah,
rate.
yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong, clinical skills are absolutely essential. I mean, we both encourage so much clinical education and further growth in that. But one of the biggest things and big pain factors I've seen in dentists is that they go and spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on clinical service and still have conversions ratio of 30 to 40%. And this is where I fail to understand that, hang on, you've spent so much money in learning a skill, which is amazing, but then you're not allowing yourself to serve your clients by using the skill because your conversion rates are poor. So wouldn't it be fair to say that you should invest in invest in your personal growth, invest in your communication skills on how to go about making sure that you're hitting a minimum of 70% conversion rates. I would think 70 to 80% is a good rate to be at. And that's almost double fold from the current statistics I've seen, and possibly you've seen as well.
And I think if you went from a 35% conversion rate to a 70% conversion rate, you would be twice as good of a dentist, because I would want to send my granddaughter, if she had a cavity and she went to the dentist, I think the best dentist would be the one who got the infection out, removed the decay. That would be more
Absolutely.
important than if she used a composite from Ivoclar or 3M.
Absolutely, which is you just rephrased what I was just saying there, which is you can serve them. Once you convert them, you can serve them and you can treat them. That's more important.
That is great. It's more important to what'd you say? It's more important to convert them
Yeah.
than yeah.
Then
You don't serve them until you convert them.
yes, the step before serving them is converting them. So even the dentists right now back graduating from university are never taught these skills, which amazes me. I mean, I'm hoping at some point in the near future this is a module that are taught purely on communication skills, and there's a lot to do with communication skills. I mean, there's what we call visual communication skills, which is body language. Body language constitutes to 60 to 65% of your communication. So using gestures, using expressions, using ways, what I call micro expressions, which is the B we are talking about right now. So the A was for attitude, the B we are right now is in body language. Again, people like themselves, and people do business and people get treated and people enjoy getting treated with people like themselves. So how do you go about learning these skills, especially body language skills, with your patients? So right now I'm doing a mastery in something called micro expressions, which is a phenomenal way of reading people's faces and body even before they come up with objections. Now, we all face objections as dentists from our patients. But the issue is, how do we go? Objections are fine. Objections are just telling us that the patient needs more information. So how do we go about learning those objections before someone even verbalizes it? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. They're telegraphing what they're thinking by their facial expressions.
A lot of facial expressions, a lot of body expressions, hand expressions, leg expressions. So this is a module I teach in my seminars as well, which is phenomenal. I mean, I can spend 2 days on it, but I at least spend about 2 hours on it because there's so much intensity. And once again, the statistics have shown that 60% of communication between human beings is body language. So it is so much of an importance to study that, not only using verbal techniques, but how to use non-verbal techniques, which is what we call body language.
And you included attire in body language, clothing. You mentioned clothing. So do you think you would have a higher connection rate and conversion rate if you were in a scrubs because you're a dentist with your loops and mask on, or a suit and tie, or what about clothing?
Okay, one of the things see the issue here is that there's different personalities of patients we come across, and one of the factors is all about positioning yourself as an authority. Now, you can only position yourself as an authority for a period, or for a small, short period of time, a couple of minutes or so. But then you need to get to the level of the patient to build that deep rapport. Everyone, like even human beings, when you meet a new person, no one likes being in a situation where somebody is more authoritative, or more authorized than them. So I always teach dentists that yes, the patients are coming to you, they're coming to an authority, you're an authority, but don't push it on them, as much as you can. So don't go wearing your loops and masks and gowns. Get to their level. So the best way to do you can do that when you are treating them, but don't do that when you are consulting with them. When you're consulting, they will be just sharp, sleek, just like I say, dressed to impress. You need to be clean shaven, or you need to be at least trim and tidy. Make sure you're dressing well and presenting yourself in the most optimal way possible. Now, especially if you're doing cosmetics, full mouth reconstructions, I mean, you can't do that kind of stuff and then come out with stains on your lab coat or stains on your t-shirt or shirt, So, yes, that's what I would say. So clothing does play a part. A little bit of a part, it does. See, everything comes, you got to put everything together. You got to put your clothing together. You got to put your verbal skills together. You've got to put your non-verbal skills. You got to put your posture together. How are you sitting in front of a patient? So are you slouching? Are you putting your position, are you erect? Are you making sure that you're positioning yourself in such a way that the patient knows that you're listening to them, that you're present with them? One of the biggest things I've noticed when dentists consult as well is that the mind is running 1,000 miles per second while they're not present with the patient. So I always teach them the skill on how to be present, how to keep their inner mind a bit quiet, get more engaged with the patient. But these are the tools and techniques which I teach when we're talking about consulting with patients, for the primary aim to convert them so that you can serve them.
And that's not just patients, that's with staff and family. I mean, I see
Absolutely.
so many adults, their kids sitting there asking them questions, telling about something while they're scrolling on their iPhone.
Yes, yes. And that brings us back to that attitude we were talking about. How present are you with your patient? That's part of an attitude. How present are you? How engaged are you? And remember, whenever we are talking to another human being, they always feel it. They know that we are engaged. They will know if our minds are not there. It shows in our bodies. As much as we can say, mind controls the body.
So you were going through the ABCDE.
Yeah. So the C kind of is the deeper one, which is what I call the conversational skills. And in the conversational skills is where that spin questions come in. I mean, the power and the art of asking questions to our patients, leading them to give us enough information and establish value, establish their need, and so that we can give suggestions accordingly. So these spin questions is a kind of a formula I personally use with my patients, and I've seen a huge success with it. The spin questions comes from an author of, his name was Neil Rackman or something like that. Neil Rackman. He's written a book. It's an amazing book, and I learned those skills of him. And there's a very standard way of asking questions. So the SPIN stands for situation questions, P stands for problem questions, I for implication questions, and N for need payoff questions.
Okay, say
Now
that one
this,
more time. That was pretty fast. S stands for.
what we call situation questions.
Okay, then
The P stands for problem questions. The I stands for implication questions.
okay.
And the N stands for need payoff questions.
Need payer.
Need payoff. Need payoff questions.
Okay. Okay, go through all those. What do all those mean? What are spin questions?
Well, that's a 45-minute conversation right there.
Well, you know what? I would let you go 45 minutes. You can take as long as you want. I am not going to cut you off.
Okay, the situation questions pretty much means you're asking them questions regarding the present situation they are in. Pretty much, to give you an example of that would be, what's your current situation, right? And how is it affecting you? Those are the two big questions I ask. What's your current situation? So whenever I'm introducing myself to my patients, I'm always introducing along the lines of, hi, Mrs. Jones, I'm here to serve you. How may I help you today? And they will extend their issues to me, whatever the problem is. And the situation question is somewhere I would ask along the lines of, how is this problem affecting you? Is it getting worse at certain times of the day? The standard questions we all ask as dentists. So what I call situation questions. So what is the current situation? Then we move on to what we call the problem questions. The problem questions basically lays down how severe is this problem? How is this affecting you? Is this affecting anyone else? So for example, when I'm doing smile reconstructions or smile makeover consultations, I get patients telling me that, it seems like that I'm not being socially accepted in the society. Some people feel like that, purely because that problem they have is affecting others as well. It feels that they're affecting others as well. Or it feels like my partner has stopped paying attention to me and is always mentioning something about my smile. It could be anything. But this is where we ask certain problem questions. How is it? How severe is it? Is it affecting anyone else? And is it getting worse or is it getting better? Or what makes it worse? What makes it better? So again, this is a standard form of questions, but there is a sequence to it as you see it. First, we start with situation questions, then we start with problem questions. Then the implication questions is where most dentists stop at this. So some dentists ask implication questions. Some people don't even ask them. They stop at what we call P. So they ask situation questions, they ask problem questions. Implication questions are questions where you ask your patients, what would happen if you don't fix this? So that's the next step. So for example, so the intention for that question is to surface their problem. You're bringing the problem back to their mind, so they understand the intensity of that problem. Now remember, the reason I'm doing this is so that I want them to be sure that this is something they want to treat. This is something they want to fix. So you're bringing that question back about what would happen if you don't fix this problem? So for example, for smile makers, they would say, you know what, I keep on hiding my smile when I'm in front of my cameras. I pucker my lips and I don't smile at people. This kind of. So what would happen? What would happen if you don't fix this? I will still lack confidence, for example. Whatever it could be, you're resurfacing their problem. You're bringing it up to their heart and to their mind. So intentionally, it's bad to say this, but you're putting them in a bad place. You're putting them in a place where it hurts. The emotions are up, which is then why it is very important to finish them off with what we call need payoff questions. So the need payoff questions takes them to a place where they feel happy about fixing this issue. So the questions you're asking in the need payoff region is, what would happen if you were to fix this problem? How would it change your life? How would it change your health? Are there certain kind of foods you would start to eat better? Would your chewing become better? Would you start enjoying your food better? Does that make sense, Howard?
Absolutely.
So the reason I take them into this sequence is that within this sequence, at the same time, I'm watching their body language, I'm watching their expressions, I'm watching how they're reacting to the questions I'm asking. I'm also watching how emotional they're getting in this stage. I'm not offering any solutions yet. I'm not offering any treatment suggestions yet. I'm just creating a space where they can be open with me to tell me their issues, their problems, and how I can somehow help them.
You also
yeah.
talk about your 6 stages of key experiences that your patients go through. So what are they going through?
The 6 stages of key experiences is actually a subject where there are 6, in my opinion, once again, this is my opinion, and this is what I've observed over time. There are 6 stages a patient goes through with an experience with you and your team. So it's not about just you in your consultation, it's 6 stages. The first stage is they hear about you. So what we call marketing. How are you positioning yourself and your business in the market? How are they hearing about you? So once they hear about you, maybe through Google or through a website, and remember your website is your online real estate. So one of the things we need to focus on is your online presence has to be in the most optimal way. So how do you go about positioning yourself and your website and your whole presence in the market as an authority? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So the first step in this six steps is experience. So because sometimes the patient hears about you, they come to your website and decides not to take any action. So that's your first experience. So when I say the patient goes through 6 experiences with you, the first experience is always in marketing. So they will make a judgment, they will establish or they will make a decision whether they want to carry on coming to see you or making contact with you in the first place. So you could be the best dentist out there, you could have the best skills out there, but we are living in an era where people are Googling nowadays everything. People are Googling, I want to get the best smile done, I want to get some implants done, and what's the best way? Every kind of information nowadays is in the internet. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So that leads to the second step. The first step, when they come to the contact of coming to your website, the second step they do is call your practice. So how is your team positioned to answer the best possible way over the phone? So are they matching the vocal tone? Are they handling objections really well? Are they collecting enough data to make an assessment which dentist they can see in your practice, etc., etc.? So they're pretty much going through a process of what we call question answering, and the biggest step there, which is a very crucial step, is that are they booking the patient in? So the patient hasn't even seen you or your team. Are the patient feeling comfortable over the phone to get booked in? Now here's another statistics. How we were talking about 30 to 40% of conversion rates before for dentists having conversion rate. Did you know there's also something called a telephone conversion rate? And the telephone conversion rates, again, in practices I've seen, is about less than 30%, 40%.
In the United States, when you install software on a dental office computer, so the incoming call can see, is this number already in their practice management information system? to versus it's a brand new number. And then is that person that called in ever scheduled for appointment? It's about 20%. So
Wow.
5 strangers have to call your front desk
Yeah.
receptionist for one to get their butt scheduled in a chair. And the dentist
Yeah.
is still asking you what bonding agent he should use.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
4 out of 5 call and don't even get in, and then you tell
Yes.
100 people they need a cavity and 38 get it done, and then he'll
Yes.
still fly from here to Kathmandu to learn about the best wear rate on a composite.
Yes. And again, those skills are important. But here, Howard, I want to ask you this: that statistics you just shared with me, where do you think they're hearing about you from? Is it still internet?
Well, the thing that's so tough about the United States, I hate the term United States of America because, just like in Europe, you can't compare Germany to Greece, you can't compare Italy to Portugal. I mean, the United States is a monster huge country
Sure.
with a third of a billion people. I mean, you can't compare New York City to Alabama or Alaska to San Fran. It's all over the board. It's from A to
Yes.
Z. In fact, the funniest thing I hear from people say, "Oh yeah, I visited your country." I'm like, "Really? Where did you go?" And they go, I went to New York City to the Greater New York Dental Meeting and I was there for 5 days. I'm like, dude, if you think Manhattan is the United
Yeah.
States, I mean, that is like 0.00. That is not a very good representation of America. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
we
just,
feel
it's a, it's a, it's just, it's really the United States in all reality is about 11 or 12 countries flying under one flag. You know
yes,
what I mean?
yes,
It's a
yes.
really broad place. Just like I've been to your country so many times, you can't compare Perth to Sydney
No, you can't.
or
I was going to say
Adelaide to
that.
Melbourne.
Yes. I mean, it's similar to Australia. It's huge. Actually,
Same size as the
I was
United
just
States. Did you know
yeah.
the United States, Australia, and China on square kilometers is the same size?
Wow. Okay. Because I
They're
was
all
looking the other
3.6
day.
million square miles.
Yeah, I was looking at the other day. United States extrapolated over. Sorry, Australia extrapolated over United States, and you guys seem to be about 20% bigger in
Well,
terms
if
of.
you include Alaska, it's 20% bigger. But if you don't include Alaska, it's the same size, and it's the same size as China.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. 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 So again, coming back to that question, which was you say that out of
Five
every
incoming
five patients,
calls to get one
yeah,
scheduled in the chair, and then you schedule 100 of them in the chair, they'll only remove the decay on 38% of them.
wow, wow. So then that's the next step. So we were talking about telephone conversions, telephone conversions to booking in to see with the patient. So that was the second step of the patient experience. So I tell patients there are 6 areas where you can lose a patient. 6 areas where you can lose a patient. The first one being obviously internet marketing and how you're positioned, how your website is positioned on Google. The second one is your telephone conversation skills. How is your front desk team uh, competent enough to answer and book patients in? So how is the training going with them? I mean, are you providing training to them in the first place? Because you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on clinical education and mastering your skills, yet you're failing to serve a huge amount of population. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and here that leads to the third part of the experience, which is now the patient's walking into a practice. How is your practice looking? How is your customer service? Our customer service is a very big thing I teach. I believe next to clinical skills is customer service. People will, that quote, people will forget what you do, people will forget, etc., but people will never forget how you made them feel. And, your customer service, I mean, there's techniques we can teach our fellow peers and professionals to provide 6, 7 star customer service. The reason I end up seeing around 200 new patients a month in my practice, I would personally say that the number one reason would be related to customer service. My training in customer service has to be optimal with my teams. We're not perfect, we're not the best, but we strive to be the best. We strive on a daily basis. What kind of habits are dentists building in the practice to provide the best customer service? And also the look and feel of your practice, wouldn't that matter as well? I've seen a couple of practices, when I go into the practices, they've got Reader's Digest or National Geographic magazines displayed in their reception or in the lounge, what I call the lounge area. The patients are there for a purpose. If you were to educate them into different kind of procedures. I have so many patients coming in to my clinical rooms telling me, I never knew I could straighten my teeth with these clear aligners. What is this clear plastic things you're wearing on your teeth? The people are not even aware of that. So this is a perfect opportunity for dentists to educate them while they're waiting in the lounge or relaxing in the lounge before the clinical appointment. So the third step is that how you're presenting to them when they're coming to your practice, which leads to the fourth step, which is you as a clinician, you as a dentist, us as a dentist. So which is what we spoke about before, the ABCDE, the 5 steps everyone needs to know. The 5 steps which will give you an optimal way to convert your patients to clinical treatment, for allowing you to serve them. So that is all the 5 steps. So the fourth, so again, you can lose a patient in this fourth step, which is you, which leads then, Howard, to the 5th step, when you're taking your patient outside to your treatment coordinator. And the treatment coordinator is going through payment plans, treatment options, scheduling appointments, answering any last-minute questions, using certain form of techniques to make the patient feel comfortable and going ahead with the treatment. So again, after the first 4 steps, you can still lose a patient on that step. And finally, the last step, which is following the patient after. What happens when the patient leaves your practice? How do you follow up? How do you follow up them via email? Do you give them a call? Do you have a routine? Do you have a system in place so that allows your team to give? Because it's hard to keep a track sometimes. So that's another thing we talk about, which is tracking of your new patients, tracking of your existing patients, tracking of patients with treatments which are incomplete. So to run a business, to run what I call to be a dentipreneur. That's the word we use, to be a dentipreneur.
I love that word.
Yeah, we actually have a Facebook group I've recently opened, which I would love it if you give a shout out to everyone there. It's a Facebook group, a group of dentists. We just opened a few months ago. There's just it's a private group where the group is called Dentipreneurs. And the intention of that Facebook group is to make sure everyone contributes and add value to each other. How do we add value as dentists, as professionals, as peers? How do we add value to each other for everyone's success? So all of us can serve, all of us can grow successfully. So it's an awesome group. So it'd be awesome that if you can give a shout out to that, Howard.
Absolutely. And you can shout out posting it on Dentaltown too. Dentaltown has 210,000 dentists from every single country on earth. It's amazing. It started in 98. And 210,000 dentists. In fact, you should do a course sometime on it. The online C course, we put up 350 courses. They've been viewed over 550,000 times, over 500,000 views. It's a neat place. So, but when we were going through the ABCDs, we went to A, attitude, B, body language, C, conversational skills. Then we jumped over to what is the dentist's conversation, or what is the patient thinking of it? And you went through the 6 stages of key experience of your patient. But what was the D and the E, and is there an F?
The D is pretty much a what I call it's derived from the NLP part of it, which is the neuro linguistic programming, which is a part of a coaching process I've done. D stands for discovering their dominant sense, which is generally everyone has got 3 crucial senses, what we call visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
Visual, they have 3: visual, audio, and what?
So visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
Now that's the three deals of NLP.
yeah. So no. This idea or this system came from NLP, from my training in NLP,
I think there's
which I've now.
I think there's probably a lot of viewers who don't know what NLP is or what it stands for or what it's all about. Can you explain NLP and then go into visual, auditory, and kinetic?
Sure. NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. Pretty much what it means is that our nervous system, our language skills are all programmed into us. It's all programmed from the external stimulus, which is what we see in our lives, what we experience in our lives. And there are certain patterns in how we run our actions from. So everyone, if myself and you are in a similar situation, we will react differently to it, purely because of how our perceptions have been shaped previously in life. So that's the study of what we call neuro-linguistic programming. It's an amazing study, and I encourage all dentists at some point to do this system. I'm actually, in the next couple of months, doing a training for dentists in NLP. So I'm organizing a program specifically for dentists in neuro-linguistic programming. It allows a person basically to go intensely into a self-discovery process. So why do they behave? Why do they act the way they do? Why do they speak in the certain way they do? Why do they one of the things, I mean, Tony Robbins is big in this as well. And he's one of my mentors. I love that guy to bits. He's done some phenomenal teachings in NLP as well.
And we did a podcast with Tony Robbins a month or two ago, didn't we, Ryan? Tony Robbins? Yeah. Big fan of Tony. Just an amazing man.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. Yeah. So he's quite big in NLP as well. And so coming back.
Well, he told me that you were quite big in NLP.
No. I'm his follower. Yes, so coming back to the D part of it, which is discovering the sense. So we all receive information from the outside, mainly in pictures, sounds, and feelings. These are the three main ways we as human beings receive information. I mean, the other ones being gustatory, which is food, and olfactory, which is smell. But putting those two aside, mainly we receive information on a daily basis by three things: pictures, sounds, and feelings. Now, we all process that information, but one of that sense is dominant in us all. Now, the reason I bring this point up, why it's so important to pick this sense up in your patients, or there's a certain system and certain process to pick this point up, which is to find out, are they dominant visual, are they dominant auditory, or are they dominant kinesthetic? Because you can then apply your verbal skills and sometimes your environmental skills to build deeper rapport. We are still on that subject of building rapport in 60 to 90 seconds. How fast can you establish rapport? So there are certain methods you can use, especially certain words you can use. For example, just to share an example for visuals, I would be using words like bright. I would be using words like sharp, crystal clear, words like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
For kinesthetics, I would be using words like, how does that feel to you? You know, they're more into texture. These, so anyone with a dominant sense will make decisions first with their dominant sense. So it's a very crucial thing, in my opinion, to know, and I've used this very successfully in my consultations, and it's a very easy process to learn as well. It just needs a bit of practice.
And then so we'd be at E.
E is energy.
E is energy.
E is energy.
And by that you mean Red Bull?
Yeah, natural Red Bull. I call it the natural SEO.
Now, Australia used to be part of the British Empire. So is it predominantly a tea drinking country, or are they a coffee drinking?
I still have my masala tea every day.
So tea drinking. And you went to Glasgow. Australia has 5 dental schools. Why did you go to Glasgow, Scotland? for dental
So
school?
a bit of history about myself, Howard. I was actually born and raised in Africa. I was born and
Whereabouts?
raised, yeah, in Kenya.
I've been to Kenya. That's the Serengeti.
That's no, that's Tanzania.
Well, but didn't Serengeti at the other end of it touch
It
Kenya?
does, it does, it does. So our biggest national park is Masai Mara, which is what I've noticed that you've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yes, and the most interesting thing about Africa, so I know where the story is going to go, is the when you had the Roman Empire and people learned about the Silk routes,
Yes,
that for the Silk routes, most traders would only go 20 miles. So all the trade had a family living every 20 miles, all the way from London all the way to Calcutta, so all your sugar and cinnamon and all the things they traded had to have an Indian family every 20 miles along that road. So if you're
yes,
Indian from Kenya, your great
yes.
ancestors were on the Silk Route.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, so I'm third generation Indian born in Kenya. So my great grandparents came from India, and so I was born and raised in Kenya. I studied in Glasgow. I studied in Glasgow. I somehow ended up there. It was a
Do you
trend
do you
at
know
that time.
Imtiaz Manji?
Sorry?
Have you heard? Do you know Imtiaz Manji, the founder of the Scottsdale Center or the Spear Institute in Scottsdale?
No, no, I haven't heard of him.
He's one of the biggest names in
Uh,
American dentistry. He's from Kenya too.
right, I've heard of the Spear Institute, a phenomenal
Yeah,
institute,
that
but
was founded by Imtiaz Manji,
right,
whose roots
okay.
go back to Kenya, then Vancouver, Canada, and then Scottsdale, Arizona.
Well, I'll make it a point to get connected with him.
But he and you did not climb Kilimanjaro. The fat
Not
guy
yet, not
did. Go
yet,
figure
not
that,
yet.
huh? Go figure that.
I always tell Indians are not made for labor. Give us your taxes, we'll do them.
So you so was Kenya part of the? It wasn't part of the British Empire, was it? Or was
It
it
was. It was.
Kenya?
We got independence in '63.
So, and what was the country next to it that was part of the British Empire? It was Kenya, and
We've got Kenya, we got Tanzania, we have Uganda, we got Ethiopia, all those. So it's called the East Africa, the
those
East
were all
African
British
nation.
Empire.
Yeah, yeah,
So
most of
so
them, yes.
so you moved to Scotland just for dental school, or did your family move there?
No, no, just for dental school. So I see the trend back in the day was to send everyone to England, and I never got accepted anywhere in England. So I ended up getting accepted to Glasgow by chance.
Well, at least you didn't hit rock bottom and end up in Wales.
Yeah, it's actually a funny story because
I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
yeah, I know. It's a funny story. I didn't even know whether I wanted to do dentistry. It was one of those trends back in the day that my dad's a doctor, so you follow that line of science. And so I ended up in Glasgow, and then my brother, who's business partners with me here as well, he did his dental degree in Sydney here. So he's 2 years older than me. And so when I graduated, he gave me a call. I said, Kinnar, just come over here, and you know what, we'll build dreams together. I said, fine, let's, fair enough. Let me come there. So finished my dental school in Glasgow, and I moved straight to Sydney 15 years ago.
And since you've got there 15 years ago, some very huge things happened on the supply and demand. The government did not like how long Australians were waiting to get into the dentist. They didn't like the
Yeah,
fact that there weren't dentists in rural Australia. So they opened up their doors to foreign trained dentists, and they
yeah.
let in a lot. I mean, didn't they let in like 1,000?
Thousands, absolutely, which is not a problem. I mean, I don't have an issue with that. Here's the issue. The issue is that, which we are talking about all this time, that gone are the days where you can just suggest something to a patient and expect them to accept it. You need to learn the correct rapport building and communication skills to first convert and do case acceptance before you can serve them. So these skills are so important. So, which is where your point comes in. There's so much of supply now that I feel that every dentist needs to learn these skills to not only allow themselves to grow, but allow themselves to serve more people.
So, and one last shout out to Glasgow. I'll be lecturing in Glasgow June 24th and then in London June 17th. But I only got you for a few more minutes. Tell me
So,
about your new book you're writing. Your life is your biggest occasion. Rise up to it. And I see that RISE stands for something because it's R period, I period. What does RISE stand for?
so um, the book is all about, again, it's all about how to be successful in any business or any entrepreneurship you're involved in. The RISE stands, the R stands for relationship building skills. So it's basically, I describe in there how to build relationship building skills, which is what, again, what we have spoken about, but much more in detail. The I stands for influencing skills. So how to use certain language patterns to get your message across more effectively. There's a certain verbal language patterns we can all use. Again, the reason for influence, or the other word for influence, is persuasion. We all need to, we are on a daily basis. I'm always influencing my kids. I'm always persuading my kids to do everything. So we are always daily involved in influencing and persuading people. Even if you have got an idea to share to someone, you're influencing them for them to believe or listen to your idea. So there are certain influencing skills I go about describing in that book. The S stands for strategic skills. I'm a big believer in strategy. So there is one thing about having ideas, but there's one thing about putting them into a strategy so you can finally E them. The E stands for execute them. You can finally put some action towards it, because no success starts with action. Otherwise, it's all talk. So that's what the book is all about, which are the principles of relationship building skills, influencing skills, strategic skills, and finally execution skills. So I'm writing a book not necessarily for dentists, however, it applies to pretty much everyone. If anyone, my belief is that if anyone can master these 4 areas in their life, they can be very successful in whatever they do, including contributing to the society.
There's some now a lot of DSOs in America. We have a Heartland Dental that has 1,500 offices. We have Pacific Dental that has 500. Singapore actually has a publicly traded dental chain. What do you remember the name of that off the top of your head? Well,
Are we
Q&M.
talking?
Yeah, Q&M. Good
Yeah.
job, Ryan. And is there there's some big chains in Australia. Isn't there one like called like 1,300 Smiles or
Are we talking about corporates here?
yeah, corporates.
Yeah, quite a few corporates here. Quite a few corporates. Which
What's
is
the big one? Is it
there,
1300? Is it
there's 1,300 Smiles. There's Dental Corp. Dental Corp is one of the big ones as well. I can't remember the names of the others, but there are about a good 5 of them.
and again, it sounds like you're saying don't worry about big corporate dentistry. Don't worry about competition. Don't worry about foreign trained dentists moving in your market. You're saying it's really just more about your own game. You're saying it's more of a golf game. Worry about your own game, and it's not a boxing match where you're competing with the guy across the street.
Absolutely, it's always about your own game. I mean, people get carried away. You know, people sometimes feel that external circumstances dictate how they live their life, which is not. You know, it's a simple philosophy of just focus on yourself, focus on your own growth, focus around the people around you, focus on your own contribution. And if you keep on focusing on the right stuff, it's an abundance market we are living in. You know, it's an abundance mindset. And I always believe that. More energy can be spent on oneself than worrying about what's popping out there. I mean, there are a lot of dentists who complain. There's a lot what we spoke about before. There are a lot of dentists, international dentists, who are coming here. I said, so what? You know, you be the best version of yourself. Make sure you invest in yourself, and nothing can stop you. Unstoppable machine. Nothing can stop you.
Yeah,
And that's
I love it when people think in hope, growth, and abundance, and I hate it when they think in fear and scarcity.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I
you
mean,
just
there's
got to
enough.
think in
There's enough
abundance.
for everyone. There's enough for everyone, you know. And don't ever forget your ultimate purpose, your ultimate passion in life, you know. And carry on, be driven towards it.
So since you went to dental school in the United Kingdom, does that mean you're a big cricket fan or soccer? What is your favorite sport living down under?
Snooker.
Seriously?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
Uh, my soccer. So we call it football. Back in the United, we call it football there. So I'm a big Man United fan.
So you call it football though.
Yeah, well, in Australia it's called soccer,
In the
but
United Kingdom,
internationally it's called football. I still
uh-huh.
prefer to call it football.
Yeah, and do you think and I was wondering not to get off topic, but we are out of time. The American football, the
Yes,
way they play, it's the big issue is concussion, 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 concussion. What I
yes,
find very interesting in reading that research is that soccer players are bouncing a soccer ball on the front of their head, and that it actually is a big issue for soccer, the or what United Kingdom calls football. Americans are thinking about it as the NFL, their version of football, but it's really a
right.
huge issue in soccer. So my question to you is this: do you think it is even possible to get the world soccer community to stop using their head during a soccer game?
No chance.
Yeah, it's that's true, isn't it?
No, no pain, no gain.
Yeah. So when they talk about concussion, I mean, the bottom line is when you see an American football player with a helmet on diving over a wall of people to get 1 inch on a ball, that ain't ever going away. And if
It's
you
no,
go,
it's a primal instinct.
oh
We are,
my
we are,
God,
we,
trying to go to Brazil or Africa and tell them they can't use their head in a soccer game, you might as well, you probably have better luck asking them to cut off their head.
yes, yes. They might come back with a metaphor for you. That are you a dentist? Try doing dentistry without a drill.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for accepting my invitation to come on this show. I think the world of you. I'm a big fan of yours. I love what you're doing, and I'm trying to help my homies. Like say, I'm trying to get them. They're always focused. If you ask them what keeps you up at night, they're like, how to get rid of sensitivity during a filling, and I'm like, dude, if that's your question,
Yes,
there's just so many questions. By the way, the answer to that is a self etching
yes,
in my opinion. I got rid of all my sensitivity with Clearfill SC about 2 decades ago. But
yes,
thanks for what I call this is I guess they call it in America. I don't mean to belittle it, but they call it the soft knowledge. They call how to do root canals, fillings, and crowns the hard knowledge, and they call
yes,
this the soft skills. And I
yes,
think the soft skills are more important when it takes 5 people to call your office before one comes in. And I think in America, if the fire department only put out 38% of the fires, the town
yes,
would run them out of town. They'd fire every last fire department. I mean, they're expected to put out 100% of all fires and to try to catch every bad guy. And then here's a dentist, and he can only catch 38% of the cavities drilled, filled, and billed, and
yes.
62% walk out the door. So,
Yes, and it is, and I wish Dennis can understand that it's a skill they need to invest in, and it's not difficult. It's easy. Couple of pointers here and there. I mean, we've done dentistry for God's sake, we've come to a state in life where we're very clinically experienced. So these kind of skills are very easy to learn, but you need to invest in them. You need to invest yourselves. I mean, don't pretend that your skills are optimal. If they were optimal, and if you're not measuring, I mean, measure is a big thing. Measure your statistics, because sometimes dentists don't realize this till they understand that they're only converting 30-40%. So I always, when I'm coaching dentists, I'm always telling them, first you need to realize where you're going wrong before you can invest in yourself. So realize that your conversion skills are so and so. So measure them. I mean, if I were to take last 6 months of new patients, how many patients did you convert? And get some statistics. It's your business, for God's sake. It's your establishment. It's where you are serving on a daily basis. The least you could do is know how you run your business. You
and
know,
last but not least, how many dentists are in the Australia these days? Australia.
we around 10% of you guys, so around the 20K mark. I'm guessing you are around the 200K mark.
There's 211,000 humans alive in the United States with a dental degree. About 125,000 are general dentists that work 32 hours a week or more, and about
Yeah,
30,000 are specialists that work 32 hours a
yeah,
week or more. There's actually 211,000 have a dental degree. My point being, I'm trying to, I like to find talent in the other continents and bring it back home. So if you ever want to break into these 211,000 dentists, do an online CE course. Remember,
Yeah.
I know you're from Australia, but America starts and ends with an A too. So
Yes, yes.
you can share it over here too.
Absolutely. I was there actually last year. I was with Brendan Bouchard. I was getting trained with Brendan Bouchard, and that's where the high performance coaching comes in. So I'm a big fan of his as well. So I was in America 3 times last year. But yes, thank you for that invite, Howard. You've been amazing. You're a legend yourself. I
I'm
mean, the
only a
amount of
legend in my own mind.
the mind starts first, doesn't it? The amount of
Oh, all right.
the amount of
And that was my lame joke. Europe is the only continent that doesn't start and end with an A. But hey, on that note, next time I see my brother Paul in
yeah.
Sydney, I'd love to have dinner with you and have a beer.
It would be my honor if you could do that. Anytime in when you're in Sydney or in Australia, just holler at me and
And
I will take care of you.
his name's Paul Farran. I think he's the only Farran down there in Australia. So you just Google Paul Farran Sydney. He might be your neighbor.
Yeah, I will connect with him on Facebook as well. Thank you for that, Howard. Thank you for this opportunity. I mean, what you're doing is amazing. You're as much as Dental Town is a place where I've not paid much attention to, but the statistics show that you've done a phenomenal job in building a community, which is adding so much value to it. And thank you for doing this podcast. I mean, I was listening to a couple of podcasts before that. That was amazing. Thank
All
you for
right,
this.
buddy. Well, I can't wait to have a beer with you, and we'll invite a kangaroo to join us.
Yeah, the exit is namaste.
Namaste. All right, buddy. Thanks very
All right,
much.
buddy. Thank you so
Namaste.
much. Thank you.